Got to. There we go. All right, class. There we go. All right, so last week we discussed ecological succession and evolution. And when there is succession occurring, then that creates a whole new series of abiotic and biotic factors that will affect the organisms living in this landscape. So let's take a look at this picture. It might be a little bit difficult for you to see, but we have a little 1 at the very far left, and we have an 8 at the very far right. And this is a typical primary succession. We see some big trees on the far right. What do we see on the far left? What do you see there? Rocks. Jason said, awesome, rocks. Yes, rocks. Rocks, minerals, little rocks. Awesome, yes. So primary succession begins when you have bare rock. And then we have some pioneer species come in. Do you see any pioneer species in block 2? In that second little section? I see some grass in the third one. There might be a little bit of grass in the second one. What's growing? What else is growing on the rock? Moss, yeah. Awesome. So we have mosses, grass, and lichens that are these primary, or sorry, not primary, but that are these pioneer species that come in and they start growing on the rock. Then after a while, we get bigger plants, flowers. We have bushes, and then eventually we'll have small trees growing up into larger trees. Typically, what we see is we will see evergreens kind of reaching up and kind of overshadowing the deciduous trees in primary succession. They're typically the climax species there. Those evergreen trees are. All right. So we have a couple questions right here. Kind of a warm-up, check-in, see how you guys are doing on ecological succession. Let's look at number 1. Which statement best describes ecological succession? It's always caused by human intervention. It sometimes occurs after a disturbance. It always occurs in a predictable pattern, or it is a series of rapid changes in the ecosystem. Which one of those is true? There's only one. Okay, Emma says B, Jason says D, Jasmine says D. We got 3 people out of the 25 or so here. Come on, guys, step up. Okay, we got people piling on D now. Emma, why did you say, let's see, who said B first? Was it Emma that said B first? Emma, tell me why you said B first. Why did you think it was B? I know you changed your mind, you think you might be wrong now, but I want to hear why you say B first. Why did you say that, Emma? Looking at notes. Okay. Well, let's break this down a little bit. Okay, that's fine. It seems like a lot of people think D. Let's look at this for a second, okay? Here, let's just investigate D. D says it is a series of rapid changes in an ecosystem. So what does that mean? It means there are changes in the ecosystem, and when we're looking at changes in the ecosystem, we're talking about those abiotic and biotic factors. In this case, we're talking about the biotic factors, the plant life. And it says a rapid change, a series of rapid changes. Looking back at this picture, do we see rapid changes occurring? Think about how long it takes plants to grow. So we see this thing, we'd see it going from bare rock to the climax species. How long do you think it would take for that to happen? How long do you think that'll take that to happen? A couple of years? How fast do trees grow? Have you ever seen a tree grow 100 feet in a couple of years? Decades, centuries. Like to get the climax species, it's going to take centuries. All right, it'll take 100 plus years, 200 years, sometimes 300 years. Is ecological succession a set of rapid changes? Rapid meaning very fast? No, it cannot be D. It can't be D because it's talking about rapid changes here. Succession takes place over a long time, right? 1 year is one growing season. You might have some grass coming in, but it's gonna take a long time before that grass breaks down the soil and these other pioneer species. Let's say we're talking about secondary succession, like after a huge windstorm. It's gonna take a long time for that ecosystem to reach that climax species again, where you have those evergreen trees or the deciduous trees, depending on what type of forest you're in, to reach their maximum height, to reach maturity. It's going to take a long time for that to happen. So let's try some of these other ones. Emma said B initially. Emma, you are correct. It was B. It sometimes occurs after a disturbance. It doesn't always occur after a disturbance, but there are some types of disturbances that it occurs after. Like volcanoes, eruptions. Yes, you were correct. When there's like a clear cut, when there's a fire in a forest, yeah. When the old species, when the climax species dies out because of a disturbance, that's typically when we have ecological succession occurring. All right, number 2, guys. What's the role of a pioneer species in primary succession? Go ahead and send me your answers. Do pioneer species destroy parasites? Do they create shade? Do they provide fruit? Or do they create soil? Yes, they create soil, right? They're the organisms, the plant life, the biotic factors that are actually living on that rock. They send down their roots, or their, maybe they're not true roots, right? But they start to break up the mosses and lichens and grass start to break up the rocks, and they start to add nutrients into that soil, right? They create that soil. And once that soil is created with a lot of nutrients in it, then other plants can come in and start to grow, right? Mosses don't really provide a whole lot of shade. They don't provide any fruit. Some grasses provide grains, and they don't really destroy parasites, right? They don't eat parasites. They don't kill them, so not the best choice there. All right, last question. Which factor can cause secondary succession? Glacial melting, clear cutting, competition, or predation? Which one of these causes? Jason, brave one, says B, glacial melting. Does anyone agree or disagree with him? What does A mean? So what's a clear cut? A clear cut is when humans go in and they cut down all the trees in a landscape so that everything is clear. Okay, so we have some people saying A now. Why do you say A and not B? Why wouldn't it be glacial melting, Cody? Or Alexander or Eric? Well, I like what you're thinking, Cody. So you see that word glacial, and I think what you mean is when you have glaciers that are actually coming down a mountain, they actually scrape all the life off, right? Because they're typically these big ice sheets that can be hundreds of meters thick. And when you have the glaciers slowly coming down the mountain, they're going to rip up all the plant life and they're going to scrape away all the soil and everything. And all that's going to be left is bare rock. In this case, though, it's talking about glacial melting, right? Glacial melting. So it's the glacier's just sitting there and it's melting, and it's trickling down, and there's going to be, you know, a river occurring, right? If after, you know, 100 years or 100,000 years, and this glacial melting has receded to the point where all that's left is the rock from when the glacier came down, then yes, that's going to be succession, but it's not going to be secondary succession. It's going to be what kind of succession will it be? If yes, it's going to be primary, right? Because the glacier is receded and all that's left is that bare rock. Remember, it scraped away all the life in the soil and stuff. So when glaciers are receding, when they're melting, that's going to be primary succession. Yes, secondary succession is when after what occurs after a clear cut, right? If you look here, I'll show you outside my window here. You should be able to see here. Hold on a second. You should be able to see that I have a lot of trees out there, and under the trees there's a lot of shade. Correct? What do you see? What do you see? Do you see any plants growing down there in the shade? I see some. I see some grasses. I see a couple little vines. I see some bamboo. So if a forester came in and clear cut all those trees, are we going to have some pioneer species in there already? Are we going to have some other plants living there? Yes. Is the soil there? Is the soil still there, or has the soil been removed? The soil is still there. So that's why it's going to be secondary succession and not primary succession. Awesome. Any questions, concerns about that before we move on? Okay, Elliot, I see that you have sent me a private message. I'm going to go ahead and check that in just a moment. But meanwhile, we're going to move on. So today in our lab, we're going to watch the warm-up, do the instruction. Then we're going to read the lab, download a copy of it on our Canvas page. And then we're going to work on the virtual lab in Canvas. Okay. And then we'll have an assignment to reflect on the lab, just kind of think about what you've done so far. And then you'll watch the summary. Today, you're not going to be turning in the lab. We'll have a quiz on Friday, and that'll be our assignment for the week. But we are not turning the lab in today, okay? So, the very first thing, go ahead and go to our modules. I'm going to go ahead and do a little screen share with you guys. So go ahead, go to our Canvas page, and I'm sorry, did I say go to modules? I meant go to our files. To our files. All right, so here is our files, our file page. This is actually 7 periods. Here's 8 periods. And you'll click on this resources folder. This has all our resources for this week. And you can either click on this ecological succession and you can read through it. You can download it right here if you'd like. But you can also just put your mouse over it, hover over it, and click on these 3 dots, and you can download it that way. Once you've downloaded it, you can open it up, and there you go. You have our lab and directions for today. So please go ahead and start the warm-up. Start the warm-up and work through the warm-up and instruction for today, okay? I'll have that up on our presentations. So go ahead and be working on the warm-up and instruction. We'll come back in about 15 minutes. As you work your way through the lab. So class. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly here so you can all see. All right, so everyone should have gone to our files page. All right, they should have come on over to our lab, ecological succession, and you should have downloaded it. All right, once you download it by clicking that button right there, then you can go to our lab. We're not going to begin the lab just yet. We're not going to begin the lab just yet because we're going to open up our lab. So the very first thing you're supposed to be doing is reading this lab. So first, read your way through it, okay? We have some questions for you. In the experiment, you will determine whether adding nutrients to the soil changes the community of plants growing there. This is done by looking at the habitat's composition and structure. Write a scientific question that you are answering by doing this lab. Write your question in general terms, not in terms of specific plants. You should have done that in the instruction section in the module. So this part should already be taken care of. So make sure, and you just read all of these instructions, okay? Like, what's a quadrat? What is the independent variable in this experiment? What's the dependent variable? You should have already done all that. Then you're going to be filling this out as you go through each slide in the lab. Okay? So that's the very first one. I'm going to just go ahead and read all these questions really quickly, and you should too. Okay, I write everything because I'm a really fast reader, but you're going to need to go a little bit slower, I'm sure, right? Yes, you're going to need to go a little bit slower. All right, so I've read everything. You haven't yet, but that's fine. You can go ahead and read that a little bit later. I just want to show you what we're going to be doing, okay? So here I have my lab, and I'm just going to go ahead and listen.
Welcome to the lab. Today we're going to explore the process of ecological succession through virtual lab experiments. By the end of this virtual lab, we will examine the numbers and headings of different plants in a plot of land in order to determine if adding nutrients to the soil affects the process of succession.
Okay, so what am I going to be doing? Well, I'm going to be exploring ecological succession by measuring plant growth and how it is affected by different nutrients. All right, that's my timer. We have about 5 minutes left in class. So go ahead, work your way through this. Our homework for tonight is just finish up the lab, okay? Step 2, this is a student guide. Just look at your virtual supplies. So that's this next one. Oh, I'm gonna look at my virtual supplies. Look at that, cool. Do I have a copy of the student guide? I do. I could check this one out. This one isn't nearly as good as the one that I gave you, okay? You can check this one out if you want. It's 11 pages long. The one I gave you is only 3 pages. Oh no, it's a little bit longer than that. I think it's 8 pages long. But it's significantly shorter. So check out the one I gave you. It should be easier to go through, okay? All right, any questions before we get going? All right, class, I will let you get working on the lab. If you have any questions, ask me it. Send me a personal message or shoot me an email, okay? Any questions, thoughts, concerns?